Hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's session of Leading Through Challenging Conversations with the Fuqua Coach K Center on Leadership and Ethics. We are a global premier leadership center that is based at Duke University's Fuqua School of Business. And tonight, and our sessions, our biweekly sessions are done in partnership with the MBA Association at Fuqua, with, of course, with our wonderful Cole Leadership Fellows. We also have the Fuqua Center for Community and Inclusion, which is headed by Stephanie Robertson, who also introduced and connected us with tonight's speaker. We have, it's also done in partnership with other parts of Duke University, including the Duke University Baldwin Scholars, Business-Oriented Woman. Challenges conversations are a way of helping the participants to be able to lead in challenging times. And so without further ado, I'm turning this over to our moderator for tonight, Mary Wong. Mary is a fantastic, one of our fantastic Cole undergraduate interns. Mary, to you.
Amazing. Thank you for the introduction, Sanyan. I hope that you're all safe and well, and thank you for attending our conversation this evening. My name is Mary, and a rising senior at Duke and an undergraduate intern at Cole. It is our great honor to welcome Ms. Jen Fisher this evening. Ms. Fisher is the Chief Wellbeing Officer of Deloitte, driving the strategy and innovation around work, life, health, and wellness. She also leads Deloitte's Talent Engagement Center of Excellence. She is a healthy lifestyle enthusiast and seeks to infuse aspects of wellness in everything she does. As a breast cancer survivor, she is passionate about advocating for women's health and sharing her recovery journey. Ms. Fisher is a regular contributor to Thrive Global and curator of the Work-Life Integration Hub. She has co-authored several Deloitte Insights research reports on workplace well-being and hosts Work Well, a podcast series on the latest work-life trends. She serves as a lieutenant on the American Heart Association's CEO Roundtable. Given her expertise in holistic well-being, we are beyond excited to hear her speak about healthy habits, the importance of boundaries and routines, and finding joy. Her introductory conversation will be around 10 minutes, followed by a Q&A session. During the Q&A, please send your questions in the chat box. Thank you, Ms. Fisher, for taking the time to speak with us today, and I can't wait to learn more about you, your experiences, and your insights.
Thank you so much, Mary. That was such a great introduction. I wish I could just bring you around with me wherever I go for that kind of introduction. So I apologize for my lighting. I had great lighting until the sun started to go down, but you guys will hopefully be able to see me still. But I'm really excited to be here with all of you this evening and to share some thoughts and ideas and actually really just have a conversation about health and well-being, our physical health, our mental health, especially during this really uncertain time. And so I'm going to spend a few minutes, like Mary said, doing some remarks, but I really am open to taking any questions that you might have. So please, as I'm speaking or anything maybe you thought of prior to coming to this session that you want to talk about, that you want to ask me, please do not hesitate to do that. So, we continue to face uncertainty in the global response to COVID-19, and it kind of seems like it's endless and it's going to be around this way for a while. And this does have many of us, myself included, feeling heightened feelings of stress, anxiety, heightened emotions. And I want to start by just saying that all of these feelings are completely normal. I'm going to provide you today with some information you can use to help you cope, to practice self-care, and to build your resilience. So please take what you need from my talk today. As our work, school, family, and social lives continue to be disrupted, it's important to recognize, like I said, that mental health is just as important as our physical health now and always. And focusing on what we can control during times of uncertainty is one of the best well-being and resiliency strategies there is. But as counterintuitive as it may sound, to do this sustainably also requires that you set boundaries. And boundaries are something that you can control. They give you the time and space to take care of yourself, and protecting your physical and mental health makes it easier for you to more meaningfully connect with others and show up for the things and the people that need you. So a few tips regarding boundaries. Create boundaries for those things that are most important to you. Figure out what your self-care non-negotiables are. For example, for me, it's exercise and sleep, as Stephanie knows. These are a core part of who I am and how I live my life, and they're both things that are very much still within my control. I can be flexible about where and when I exercise, given some of the current restrictions, but I'm pretty inflexible about how much sleep I get. It's just a requirement for me. Once you've established these non-negotiables, discuss them with others, those in your family, with your friends, and schedule them. If you use a calendar, put them on your calendar. I put everything on my calendar, whether it's work-related or personal-related. And the point of this is, the better others understand your boundaries and the reasons why, the more they're able to support you. And the bonus is when we set boundaries to protect our own well-being, we give everybody else around us permission to do the same. So let's do that for each other right now. For this foreseeable future, please, if you haven't already, create boundaries around when, how long, and from where you're consuming the news. It's really important to just gather the key facts to remain safe, but to avoid ruminating on information that's out of your control. And try to balance out the news that you are watching with other lighthearted content or inspiring content, or time spent something that brings you joy. So reading a book, watching an old movie, time spent talking with friends, time outside in nature, if that's available to you. So during this pandemic, and even before, quite frankly, I've had many people reach out struggling, with how to maintain healthy habits, but especially during this time. Many of the ways in which we're used to taking care of ourselves are temporarily not available to us. And with everything feeling disrupted, I know that I find it hard not only to find the time, but quite frankly, the motivation to do a lot of the things that I used to do in the ways that I used to do them. So I recommend sticking to the basics: eat, move, sleep, and find joy. Sometimes the biggest barrier for us to our own self-care is feeling like it's too much or there isn't enough time. So to make it easier, try breaking your habits down into what I call micro steps. These are small, repeatable actions that meet you where you are, and quite frankly, can be too small to fail. So choose one thing to add to your day and build from there at a pace that works for you. And another tip is to add it on to an already existing habit. So for example, hopefully you brush your teeth every single day. When you're brushing your teeth, think of 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for. When you're washing your hands, think of 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for. So things that you're already doing, add small behaviors in that will help lift up your mood and your well-being. So when it comes to nutrition, there are a lot of strategies around nutrition, and if you already have one that's working for you, that's great. I recommend sticking to it. If you do not, the micro step that I recommend is eating light and eating often. So what does this mean? This means eat every 2 to 3 hours with light meals and snacks to sustain your energy, your brain function, and your mood. If it's possible and accessible to you, fruits and vegetables have great immune boosting nutrients. But if not, please don't stress. Just eat what's available to you, but keep them in small, consistent portions throughout the day. And yes, it's okay to indulge every once in a while. We are in the middle of a global pandemic, so if you want a cookie or a piece of cake, please eat the cookie and enjoy every moment of it. Plan your meals and snacks in advance if you're able to, either the night before or a few days at a time. And I recommend if you live with other people, get them involved, as it makes it easier to stick to when everyone is doing something similar. When it comes to movement and exercise, the micro step for movement and exercise is some is better than none, more is better than less, but not too much, especially if you aren't already used to sustained intense exercise. This can weaken your immune system for a short period of time. So what can you do? Try for at least 30 minutes of movement per day. This can be done all at once, or it can be broken up into shorter segments. I'm sure you all know there are so many great options for virtual exercise being streamed or on demand for free right now. So find one of them that works for you. Otherwise, taking a walk outside, getting some fresh air, or just tried and true body weight exercises are going to be more than sufficient. If you don't like to exercise alone, make it fun. Include people in your home or do something virtually with friends. And my favorite topic, as you heard me say, is sleep. So next to staying safe or staying home, right now, sleep is the most important thing you can do for your physical and your mental health. If you're waking up tired and going to sleep exhausted, that's a pretty good sign you need to work on your sleep routine. So you should be aiming for 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. And you want to make sure that in addition to the quantity of sleep that you're also getting good quality sleep, which I understand can be really hard right now because there's heightened levels of worry and anxiety. So like every other healthy habit that I've talked about, ritualize your sleep, set the mood, power down your devices, don't watch the news. If you're worried, talk it out with somebody or journal before bed. To increase the quantity of sleep, if you're not already getting 7 to 9 hours, start slowly. So try to go to bed and at 15 to 20 minutes earlier than you normally would. Do that for a period of time, then add another 15 to 20. Repeat this until you're waking up refreshed, and that's how you're going to know when you've hit your sleep sweet spot. Finding joy. This one's really important right now. There's a lot that's heavy that's going on that can bog us down. So try finding joy in everyday moments. Perhaps there are things that have always been there, but just in the hustle and bustle of pre-COVID life, maybe you didn't notice them. Finding joy in connecting with others, in nature. I find a ton of joy in listening to music. It's one of my favorite strategies. I blast the music and I dance around like nobody's watching because they really aren't watching. And, you know, right now I'm also finding a ton of joy in the many human acts of kindness that are happening around the world. And I'm also really encouraged about the conversations that are happening around the importance of taking care of our mental health. And we're all finding solutions to sharing solutions with one another to the problems that we're facing. And I find that that's really encouraging and inspiring to me. And then finally, let me offer a few other ideas to help you find some peace and calm right now. Make an OOC list. This is one of my favorites. So what does OOC stand for? It stands for out of my control list. So write down or talk about your worries. Label your worries by what is in and what is out of your control, and then focus on where you can actually take action. Scheduling time for worry. I do this every day. It might be silly. It might sound silly, but it's actually not. When we have an overwhelming amount of anxious thoughts, it's natural to try to do whatever we can to avoid them. But by scheduling worry time, you're actually embracing your worry, and by doing so, you're giving them a lot less power over you. So put it on your schedule or your calendar. I call it my worry appointment. It's for 20 minutes. Give yourself permission to spend the entire time thinking about all the things that are worrying you. And when your time is up, let it go. Believe me, you're going to want to. 20 minutes may not seem like a lot of time, but when you're only focused on what you're worried about, by the time the 20 minutes is up, you're done. And then later, if you notice worries coming up when you're trying to sleep or when you're engaging with others, remind yourself that you can get to your worries at your next worry appointment the next day. So I know I covered a lot. I hope some of this resonated with you. I know it can feel really hard to keep a schedule right now, but it really is important to try to stick to a set of activities and rituals that can provide you a sense of normalcy and ongoing normalcy as we continue to find our way through this pandemic. Like I said, I know it feels endless, but we need to remind ourselves and others that it's not. This isn't permanent, and knowing that and reminding yourself of that can make it easier to cope. Remember to focus on what you can control, find hope and joy in everyday moments. And I'll wrap up by saying what I started saying. Your mental health is just as important as staying physically well. If you need help for any reason, physically or mentally, please reach out to somebody and ask for help. If your stress or anxiety starts to interfere with your day-to-day life, do not let that persist. Reach out and get the support that you need. It's nothing to be ashamed of. And then let's all try to remember that we're human beings, not human doings. In times of uncertainty, we all feel the need to be doing something at all times because it helps us feel like we're in control. And there's nothing wrong with that, but just make sure that it's constructive. But I also want you to give yourselves and others permission to just be, even if it's just for a few minutes a day, to honor what you're feeling, to cry, to scream, to laugh, to dance, whatever it is, just let yourself be. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those wonderful remarks. I think this is just such a relevant topic right now, not only because of the pandemic, but also because this audience is mostly, members of the Duke community, Duke students, Duke undergrads, and graduate students. And so they're very, very relevant tips to be using, and I really appreciate that. Again, as a reminder, if you have any questions for the Q&A session, which we'll be kicking off right now, please send them in the chat box and we'll make sure that they get answered. But I have a question for you, Jen, first. And my question is kind of from personal experience, and it's a three-part question. So I've seen many Duke students work incredibly hard the week before a test, and they would sacrifice the time that they would dedicate for relaxation or other activities. To me, this illustrates the success-wellness trade-off. To put in our best efforts towards our goals, sometimes we may sacrifice things that contribute to our mental well-being to reach those goals. So the first part is, do you see success and wellness as a trade-off? Second, how are you able to not only objectively assess, but also actively control this balance between success and wellness? And lastly, do you see this balance as something that should be even all the time, or something that should maybe tip towards one side when there's an important project going on?
Wow, those are really good questions. So I'm going to take the first one, and then you're probably going, well, actually, remind me of all three of them, but let me answer one at a time.
Definitely.
So the first one.
Yeah, the first one was, do you see success and wellness as a trade-off?
I do not, actually. I think that success and wellness they're not mutually exclusive. As a matter of fact, I think that in order to sustain high performance and success, you absolutely need to be taking care of yourself. Otherwise, high performance is not sustainable. You will burn out. I'm that person. I have been with Deloitte for 21 years, and about 6 years ago, I found myself unable to get out of bed. Because I was, pretty much, I would get my 1 hour a day of a workout in. I would sleep for 2 or 3 hours, and then I would work or do whatever it was that I was doing for the rest of the time. And I considered myself healthy and well, and I burnt out. So, to really sustain high performance over the long term, we have to be taking care of ourselves. Self-care, I know it sounds cliche. It has been self-care has become a marketing tool. But self-care is not Self-Care Sunday or Wine Wednesday. Self-care is really the choices that you make every single day. And some of them are hard, but they're the choices that you make to take care of yourself. And so, self-care is not somewhere that we go to when we're exhausted and burnt out. It's really something that we need to be practicing all the time, because it's what allows us to not just show up for others, but show up for ourselves.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that. The second part of the question was, how are you able to objectively assess, but also actively control this balance between success and wellness, as you mentioned?
Yeah. So, I think, you have to be very intentional, and you have to be willing to make, tough choices. But I would also say, there are going to be instances, you have to be flexible. There are going to be instances where things might not work out as you planned, or, I talk about how sleep is important to me, and I try to go to bed between pretty much around 9:30 every night. Does that mean that, every Saturday night I'm in bed at 9:30? No, I like to spend time with my friends. Are there times when, I have to work late? Yes, it happens. Right. And so, but you want to be intentional about it. You want to schedule, like I said, your self-care non-negotiables, so that, more often than you're making the right choice around your self-care and your wellness and your well-being. There are going to be trade-offs. There are going to be times in your life where you flex more to work or school, and there are going to be times in your life where you flex more, to life. You said in your intro of me that I'm a breast cancer survivor. And so, there are things that happen in life. There are things that are going to be happening in life, like a global pandemic that none of us planned for, that are going to affect some of these choices that you make, and that are going to change some of these choices that you make. But success, burnout should not be the price that we pay for success ever. Right. And so if it takes a little bit longer, or you don't get the perfect title right away, or whatever it is, just make sure that you are intentionally making the choices that are going to impact you in the long term. Because, if you're burnout, you're not going to be able to achieve the things that you want to achieve anyway, and you're not going to be showing up for the people that you want to show up for. You're not going to be at your best.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. And I think you also answered the third part of my question within that answer. And I also see we have a couple of questions coming in, so I'll just jump through the audience questions.
I feel like my picture is like in a weird horror movie with the background, like somebody's gonna jump out of the dark, and so I don't know if it looks as weird for you guys as it does for me, but
it's great. It's great. So our first audience question is from Sanyan, and she says that she loves the idea of blocking off time to worry. What's the strategy to stop when the time is up? It's also part of her insomnia. So sometimes she wants to solve a problem or work out an issue in her head, but there is this trouble to stop when, you mentioned before you set those 20 minutes, but how do you make sure that your worrying doesn't go past that 20 minutes into the rest of your day?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. And to be totally honest, it takes practice. You have to, like any other habit, you have to be intentional about it. And so when I first started my worry appointment, I thought it was, somebody told me to do it. And honestly, I thought it was like the silliest thing in the world. And, if any of you have a practice of meditation or anything, quite frankly, that's a habit, that's a healthy or unhealthy habit. I mean, you did it for a period of time before it became a habit. And so to make habits, you have to be intentional about them, and you have to set up rituals around them. And so for, a worry, to stop worrying after a walk or in the evening, set yourself up for success, especially in the evening. If you find yourself worrying or try to solve problems, journal or write it out before you go to bed, knowing that you can solve it tomorrow. You don't have to solve it right now. But that way you won't forget. And you can even put a notepad next to your bed. So if you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't stop worrying, or something pops into your head and you want to make sure that you don't forget it the next day, just flip on the light. Try not to look too closely at the light, but know that you have a notepad by your bed and you can just write it down. Don't do it in your phone, please. Don't look at blue light, because that will affect your sleep. But putting a old-fashioned pencil or pen and paper next to your bed is a really helpful tip. But again, just practicing it. After your walk, if you find yourself continuing to worry, what is it that you can do after your walk that's going to take your mind off of that? So is there something that you can do directly after your walk that helps bring you joy? Spend time with your family, read, watch a funny video online, but something that kind of takes you out of that place where you're worrying and moves you into what's next.
Great. Thank you so much. That's really great advice. And I know I'll be taking some of that advice to personal use. Our next question is from Linda. Linda has 3 questions, and she says that feel free to pick and choose if you may want to answer one of the questions that you feel that are more important. But her first question is, how do you advise colleagues whose work required travel, for example, consulting, before COVID? Her second question is, how do you foresee travel-dependent work change in the future, and how wellness practices change with that? And her third question is, as chief well-being officer, how do you play buffer between demanding supervisors who don't prioritize wellness and struggling employees who can't and don't advocate for their wellness for various reasons? Essentially, how do you tactically bridge differences when it comes to wellness perception and practices in the workplace? Again, 3 amazing questions. You can answer them all or pick any, but yeah, we'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, so I will try my best to answer them all. So how did I advise colleagues who work require regular travel and prior to COVID? And I was one of those people that was constantly on the road. And so, there are, again, the biggest thing with wellness and well-being, regardless of whether you're traveling or not traveling, is intentionality and thinking ahead and putting your own well-being needs first, being clear about what those are, but also putting those first. And so, the same applies when you travel, right? And so kind of knowing what your travel schedule looks like, planning ahead, if, nutritious eating is important to you, finding out where, local grocery stores are, or where you can get fresh, healthy foods, or where fresh, healthy restaurants are. For me, I never, I tried to never plan like really early morning flights or really late night flights to make sure that I was getting, adequate sleep, figuring out ahead of time, what the hotel gym looked like, so I could figure out when and where and how I was going to work out, or even just planning a light workout in my room. But again, being intentional, putting them in your calendar, scheduling them, and when you travel, you have to take a little bit extra care and extra planning because, you're going to places that perhaps you aren't as used to. And so, doing that ahead of time is the advice. And also, I mean, a big thing in kind of the corporate world is, especially when you travel and consulting, is team dinners. And so give yourself and others permission to say no to team dinners. You do not have to go to team dinners every single night. And, those are things that we need to start to change or continue to change the norms around. When you're home, you don't go out to dinner every single night. And so, why do we believe that we must do that when we're traveling for work? And so, giving myself permission and being open about what my needs are and why I'm not going to dinner, and really advocating for myself and encouraging others to do that. So how do I foresee travel-dependent work change in the future and how wellness practices change with that? So it's a really great question. And I'm not sure I have a complete answer for you because I don't know if anybody has a complete answer. But what I will say is that, this pandemic in a lot of ways has really accelerated what, we call in the business world the future of work. And so the future of work, the strategies around future of work was always more digital, more virtual. In the consulting world, less travel, for the sake of our people, but also for the sake of our planet and our environment. And so, in a lot of ways, we were moving in that direction. And I think that this pandemic has accelerated that. And it's also proved that we can work virtually and we can work effectively virtually. Now, are there kinks that we have to figure out because everybody seems to be always on way more than they were before? Yes, and so there's going to have to be, we can't just lift and shift old norms and put them in a virtual world. We have to create new norms around what working in a virtual world looks like. Will there still be some travel? Absolutely. I think we have to kind of let that play out, from a Deloitte perspective. We have certain requirements before we will send people back to our offices and or our clients, and we're working closely, with those clients. And, when they go back to work and we have agreed, that safety protocols are in place, we will figure out how we send our people back. But again, I think we've proven that we can do a lot more than we thought we could virtually and be effective. And so, I think that is the direction that you will see a lot of organizations continue to move in the future of work. The third question, as Chief Wellbeing Officer, how do you play the buffer between demanding supervisors who don't prioritize wellness? So that's a good question. For us at Deloitte, we're very fortunate that, well-being is a recognized part of our inclusive culture. And, it is something that while everybody defines it differently and may have different well-being needs, everybody has their own definition of well-being. And so it is, it's part of performance management. It's part of our regular check-in processes that our coaches and their coachees have. And so it's really embedded into all of the processes that we have at Deloitte, which, holds leaders accountable for the well-being of their people. And so it isn't something that is a nice to do or a nice to have, but it is something that we recognize as a really important part of our culture because, our organization is made up of people and the brain power of our people. And if we're not supporting and creating and empowering our people to take care of themselves, we're sending burnout people into the marketplace to engage with our clients and to engage with one another and, sub-optimizing who we are as an organization. So I think, you have to embed well-being and well-being metrics into the culture of an organization to really get the outcomes that you want and to change behavior, quite frankly.
Great. Thanks so much. Our next question is from Oliver. He says, what's your advice for leaders of companies on how to empathize best with their employees to understand their struggles and how to help them find a solution to whatever it may be?
Yeah, so another great question. I would say one of my favorite strategies, for leaders, especially when it comes to kind of creating a safe space for people to talk about what they're struggling with, is to talk about what we as leaders are struggling with. And that's going to look different for every leader. It's going to look different for every person, depending on your comfort level of talking about things. And so not encouraging people to disclose things that they're uncomfortable disclosing, but, using this current pandemic as an example, as a leader, talking about, what's hard for you, what are you struggling with, but what's also working for you, and putting out that same question to your people, and understanding what's working for them, and what's not working for them, and seeing where you can help. I would also say as a leader, sometimes you're not always going to be able to solve the problem for the person, depending on what it is, but just letting them know that you're there for them. And if they want to talk, you're available for them to talk. But not always, I think as leaders and generally as human beings, I mean, we always want to help solve somebody's problem. And sometimes it's not solvable, but just being there for your people and being vulnerable and letting them know, checking in on them, asking them how they're doing, and I think sometimes directly asking them, what do you need? How can I help you? If you don't know, because they might have a very specific answer for you as to what you can do. And so I think being direct with them and asking, is there something I can specifically do to help you, is also another good strategy.
Awesome. Another question we have is from Stephanie. She says, I have had very bad eating habits for years. Do you have suggestions on how to slowly break some of those habits? It's just so hard, especially right now.
Yeah, so the best strategy, and this goes back to micro steps. So take one thing that is not nutritious that you are eating right now, that you want to stop eating, and figure out what a good replacement for it is. So, say you like to eat, an entire tub of strawberry ice cream. Can you replace that strawberry ice cream with, strawberries, blueberries, and some Cool Whip? And still get, still kind of get some of the same taste, some of the same texture, but a lot more nutritious. And so trying to think about, but, starting with one thing and thinking about what is a replacement. It's interesting when it comes to food, our brain, our brain gets, we get addicted to sugar and things like that, but our brain doesn't necessarily know the difference between a tub of ice cream and, 10 strawberries, right? It's the same flavor. So you can trick your brain into those things. What we get addicted to are the sugars and things like that, which is what we have to, kind of break the habit of. But really thinking about, one thing at a time, what can I replace that, get used to it. What's the next thing that I can replace that and get used to it. So it doesn't feel like you have to overhaul your entire eating, habits at one time, because we know that never really works. And diets don't really work. I like to say that the first 3 letters of diet is die. So just remember that, and like I said, especially now, don't be too hard on yourself. If you need to indulge and you want to have a cookie or you're craving sugar or carbs, when we're stressed and anxious, those are very normal and natural cravings.
Wow, I really love that. Thanks so much. Our next question is from Sarah. Sarah says, hearing your story, it just struck me how intertwined self-care and vulnerability are. We can begin to understand self-care both for us and other people when we are able to be vulnerable and open with each other about our experiences. How do you encourage vulnerable conversations about self-care, especially in a business environment?
It's a great question. Fortunately, we're seeing a very positive trend in the business world to talk about things that perhaps we never talked about before, and to bring the conversation of vulnerability and emotions into the workplace. Emotions, as many of you probably know, there was never a place for emotions in the workplace. You checked those at the door, which was so unreal. I mean, it's just not possible, right? As human beings, we can't check our emotions at the door, and it's so unhealthy. And so I do think in the business world, in many organizations, we've come a long way. But I would say, as a leader, the best way to encourage a vulnerable conversation is to start it. Be vulnerable yourself. Be willing to put yourself out there. And that gives everybody else permission to do the same. And they will do the same. And an example of that in my own life, I was very open about my own cancer journey, but even beyond that, with my mental health. And so I live with anxiety. And I'm very open about living with anxiety. And I've been even more open about it now with the pandemic because, I've had to pay much more attention to my mental health and make sure that I'm doing the things that, that help me keep my anxiety managed. But when I first opened up about it, and all of you can go Google this, but there's an HBR article. And so I actually came out about my mental health in a very bold way. I wrote about it in an HBR article, and when the HBR article got released, I was really excited up until the day that it published. And then when it published, I wanted to send an email to the publisher and tell them to take it down because I freaked out about, being open about my mental health. And I will tell you that the response from people within Deloitte and outside of Deloitte, the compassion and the empathy and people thanking me about being vulnerable and being human, right? And we all need to give ourselves permission to be human. And so the best way for me and for others is to have those courageous conversations, to be vulnerable yourself, and that opens the door for other people to do the same thing.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing and also, being vulnerable with us in this moment and this conversation as well. We really appreciate you sharing. We have another question from Sim, and he asks, how do you connect with someone who is measured by their individual and project success in the current engagement so that they allow their team and themselves to focus on people development, even if there is a cost to the engagement? Not questioning the value, but how will they successfully sell it?
So, it's a great question. I think, doing a little bit of homework and finding out outside of, look, every single person has something outside of work or project work that is important to them. Everybody has a definition of what well-being means to them. They may not practice it enough. They may need more, they may need less. That's not necessarily up to us to judge, but, finding out what's important to that person and, having a conversation about that, and pointing out in a polite way that, when they talk about these things, or when they talk about this thing, they light up in a different way, and they come to life in a different way. And, asking them how doing those things make them feel. And so trying to make it really personal to the person. And so less about selling it as a benefit for others, and more about, highlighting to them what those things mean to them in their life and however they define it. And then saying, okay, well, we might not all define wellness or well-being the same, but we all get the same benefits from it. And so how can we create, one of the great things that we did very early on at Deloitte as teams, we would have people get together and have everybody openly state a well-being goal that they had. And so everybody on the team knew what that well-being goal was. And the benefit of doing that is, not only, did you state something openly, so you're more likely to stick to it because of peer pressure, healthy peer pressure, but it also, everybody else on the team will support your well-being goal. So if my well-being goal was to, learn to surf, and I took surfing lessons at 4:00 on Wednesday afternoon, I would leave work early to go do that. And if Mary's, well-being goal was to learn to meditate, and she wanted to go to meditation classes or book club, or, her child's soccer game, whatever it is, having somebody state what's important to them so that the whole team collectively supports one another, and everybody feels like they're getting something out of it. And so, I'm not, the person that is secretly leaving at 4:00 on Wednesday to go to surfing lessons, and I don't have to keep it hidden. I can be open about it because Mary knows if she supports me, I'm going to turn around and support her. And so that way you collectively, we call it collective team goals. And it's really, really powerful when you do that. And so that might be another way of doing it, as a team, just to have people state what their goals are so that, everybody feels empowered. And it kind of, it brings that leader or that person on board to do the same. These are really good questions.
Yeah, they're really great questions. And another great one from Caitlin. So she asks, as your position as a newer high impact role in the C-suite, I'd love to hear more about your day-to-day in the workplace.
So, it is. It is not that common of a role yet. It is becoming more common as more and more organizations recognize and realize that well-being needs to be something that's part of an organization's culture. It's not necessarily about, programs and tools and resources and benefits. Those things are all important. They're needed, but it needs to be part of the fabric of an organization's culture. Otherwise, you can have all the programs and benefits and tools and resources, but if nobody feels empowered to take advantage of them, then you've basically wasted a lot of money on things that people aren't taking advantage of because the culture doesn't allow it. And so you are seeing a lot of organizations recognize that and start to put more of these roles in place. In terms of my day-to-day, boy, we'd have to have a longer conversation than probably what we have time for. But in general, I focus on the development of the overall strategy. We look at, when I talk about culture, we look at underlying norms that are keeping people from taking care of themselves. So are there ways that we're working? Are there things that we're doing in the ways that we're working that are reinforcing bad or old habits or old behaviors that no longer serve us well? They served us for a time. But they no longer serve us kind of in terms of who we want to be as an organization and how we want to support our people. And then, we do regularly look at, the evolution of the tools, of the resources, of the education. Education is a huge component of culture and of changing culture and of changing behavior, as you all know. And so a lot of it is, behavioral change and working with our leadership teams and with all of our people to really understand what their needs are and the evolution of their needs throughout their life journey, because it changes over time. It's one thing when you join the organization out of college. It's another thing, when you're potentially, building a family or buying a new home. It's another thing when you're getting towards retirement. And so that evolves over time. And so understanding and creating the right tools, the right resources, the right culture for people to build well-being, embed well-being into their life and into their work. So I know that was very high level, but I could probably spend 5 hours telling you what my day-to-day looks like. Every day is different, I'll tell you that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again. We have one last question from TJ, who says, "Thank you, Jen, for sharing these valuable tips on managing our current realities. On a lighter note, can you please share your favorite genre of music? Who knows, I may be able to add it to my happy place."
My favorite genre. Wow, I'm kind of like all over the place. I don't know if I have a favorite genre, but I do live in Miami. So for any of you that are familiar with Pitbull, he's definitely one of my favorites. Just because he's a local Miami boy and he does a lot of great things for our community here in Miami and never forgets where he came from. So I have a lot of respect for that. That's fun and light and potentially inappropriate music, depending on what version you're listening to. But it's something that isn't too heavy or isn't too serious. And then I would say probably pop. I do like country. I kind of like all kinds of music. My husband actually was a DJ, and he says that I listen to terrible music. So we have completely different tastes in music. He likes house music, so I like words. He likes listening to the beat.
I also agree. All music is wonderful music.
Yeah, whatever works for you, listen to it, jam out, turn it up loud. That's all that matters.
Absolutely. We'll turn this over to Sanyin, who will wrap up this session. But thank you so much again, Jen, for joining us, and we really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Mary, for that wonderful facilitation. And by the way, one final comment from TJ in response to what your answer on music is like, he believes you over your husband.
Awesome. I can't wait to leave this room and go tell him you said that.
So thank you so much for your time with us, and for Stephanie Robertson, who leads the Fuqua office for community and inclusion, for connecting us. I personally am walking away with so many gems. Just two that come to mind is self-care is the choice that you make every day. It's not about the place you go to when you are burnt out. And that idea of knowing we have a choice and that we can make it a daily choice, that's empowering. And then the second one is burnout should not be the price we pay for success ever. That's a good reminder. And then lastly, just how you openly shared about your journey with anxiety in an HBR article, and then also share it now. That gives us permission for those of us who do struggle with anxiety, or the voices that worries that we have. It gives us permission to really dive into that. So thank you so much for that vulnerability, honesty, Jen.